It's April 1st, 12/12. Just woke up and I had a bad reaction to an energy drink and I didn't go to sleep till like 7 this morning. So a little bit behind schedule, but let's get started on some projects today. I was so young, so naive. That clip was a lie, unfortunately. I spent that day and several days after slaving over a hot editing software editing my previous video, which, if you didn't mind, just clicking on that link, taking a look at it, or heading there after this video. Greatly appreciate it. But now that that's done, I can finally really immerse myself into my Camp Nanowrimo project. For Camp Nanowrimo, I've set out to improve on my two writing weaknesses, those weaknesses being my prose and my characterization. Prose is simple enough to improve. All you have to do is write. The more you write, the better you get. But what about characterization? As much as I hate to admit it, I'm not the best when it comes to characterization. A lot of my characters tend to be either idealized versions of me or bastardized versions of myself, which doesn't lend itself to real interpersonal connections by my estimate. The result is all my characters pretty much sound the same. So I've decided to use my passing knowledge on astrology and the occult to create a system I use to craft characters called Characterization through Constellations. My Camp Nanowrimo project will consist of me writing 12 short stories consisting of the characters I've crafted using this method. The system stems from my love of astrology and other quirky like occult things. I always thought it was such a romantic notion that our destinies and the culmination of our beings were written in the stars the moment we were born. So I decided to take the concept of birth charts and place them into my character creation. However, to really stretch and challenge myself, I decided to add an element of a chance to really open up my creativity. Because honestly, if left to my own devices, I would probably utilize the same signs or the same combinations of signs to write for characters. So let's quickly jump into the basis of this system. So we'll start off with a brief, and I do mean brief, overview of occult theory and astrology. We'll begin with the broad and work our way down to the specifics. So we'll start with the elements. The 12 zodiac signs are broken down into 4 elements of earth, fire, air, and water. Each element tends to have certain attributes attributed to them. For example, earth signs tend to be grounded, slow to action, and motivated by material gains. Fire signs are likely to be quick-tempered, passionate, and rash in their decision-making. Air signs tend to be detached, logical, and flighty. And water signs tend to be romantic, emotional, and motivated by their interpersonal relationships. Knowing the general element for your character's zodiac sign gives you kind of a fast and loose basis for characterization, something that you can refer to in key moments. Say, for instance, you have a character pinned down in gunfire by a rival faction. Well, if he's an air sign, maybe he would try to cry out over the gunfire and like negotiate some kind of treaty between him and the rival faction, at least until backup can come and help him out. The next portion will talk about polarity. Polarity is pretty much whether a sign presents as either positive or negative. Sometimes it's referred as masculine or feminine. But to remove stigma or confusion, I'll just refer to the positive as overt and negative as covert. The zodiac signs that are positive or overt would be Aries, Gemini, Leo, Libra, Sagittarius, and Aquarius. The signs that are negative or covert would be Taurus, Cancer, Virgo, Scorpio, Capricorn, and Pisces. Polarity is a pretty good determining factor of whether a character is good at subtext or not so good at subtext. For instance, say a girl came up to 2 of her friends, one friend being an Aries, the other friend being a Cancer, and she wants to get their opinion on an ugly dress she's bought. For Aries, an overt character, they might say something to the fact of, that dress is god awful and I'm offended you subjected my eyes to it. Whereas a Cancer might say something along the lines of, it's not the most flattering. Ultimately, a character with positive sign polarity will inform you of a situation by telling you what it is. Conversely, a character with negative sign polarity will inform you of what a situation is by telling you what it is not. Polarity is a really good determining factor for your characters to see if they communicate well through subtext or not so well through subtext. And then there's modality. Aside from being broken down into elements and polarities, the 12 zodiac signs are also broken down into 3 modalities. Those modalities being cardinal, fixed, and mutable. The breakdown is as follows. The cardinal signs are Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. The fixed signs are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. And the mutable signs are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. Cardinal is basically those who initiate. They're the natural born leaders of the zodiac. Fixed are individuals who are fairly set in their ways. It takes quite a bit of force or influence to sway them. And mutable are easygoing, adjustable, malleable, just seekers of peace. The interesting thing about modality is witnessing how each individual sign's elements and polarities plays into how they fulfill their role or their modality. An Aries and a Libra are going to lead very differently from one another. An Aries is more likely to be a warlord or an army general that leads his troops by example, as opposed to a Libra who's going to be a diplomatic leader that utilizes his wits and skills and charm to broker peace between he and his enemies so that his subordinates don't have to suffer or any harm come to them. So now for each individual sign. This is a real quick and dirty kind of snapshot of each sign. With Aries, they're the leader of the leaders. They're passionate, very concerned with self-preservation, dominant. With Taurus, they tend to be hedonistic individuals. They're very cautious and deliberate. They're motivated by material gains. They have a love of beautiful things. Gemini is very curious, childlike. There's a very superficial intellect with them. And by superficial, I mean surface level knowledge, kind of like a jack of all trades. They're also charmers. Cancers tend to be shy, moody, motivated by family, dedicated to home. They can be a little manipulative. Leos are regal, proud, protective, magnanimous, center of attention. Virgos are quiet, reflective, intelligent, wise, and grounded. Libras are balanced, yet indecisive, logical, discerning, motivated by fairness. Scorpios are mysterious, secretive. They tend to possess darker emotions, as well as being very sexual and quiet. Sagittarius tend to be adventure seekers, philosophers, seekers of knowledge, as well as pretty talented. Capricorns are hardworking, serious, providers, very work-oriented. Aquarius tend to be humanitarians, friendly, detached, flighty, quirky space cadets. Pisces tend to be dreamy, psychic, artistic, and multifaceted. Now that we have a very bare-bone understanding of the astrology of it, let's move on to the planets and placement. For the information on astrology to benefit you in crafting a complex and conflicted character, you must form a birth chart for your character, being mindful of what planet denotes what in terms of personality, as well as how each sign acts in each planet. For me, I only use several of the planets, those planets being Sun, Moon, Mercury, Mars, Venus, as well as Ascendant. The Sun represents how your character presents themselves in the world, their persona. If utilizing Michael Hage's 6-stage plot structure, the Sun is a great way to inform your character's actions in their outer journey. The Moon denotes your character's emotions, their inner world. Like the Sun is perfect for outlining the outer journey. In Michael Hage's 6-stage plot structure, the Moon is great for informing your character's motives for their action in their inner journey. An interesting notion about the Moon is the Moon is typically associated with what is hidden or illusions and stuff like that. So your character could be ignorant to the fact of their own motives. It's not clear to even themselves, but it could be clear to you, the writer. A character's Mercury sign pretty much informs how they communicate and where their intelligence lies. A character with a water sign Mercury could have high emotional intelligence and typically utilize emotions to communicate. They make emotional appeals in their argumentation. Venus determines different things for different people. If you are an individual who identifies in a feminine manner, Venus denotes what makes you attractive to other people. If you're an individual that identifies more masculinely, Venus informs you of what it is that you find attractive in the feminine. With Mars, it's pretty much topsy-turvy of Venus. If you're an individual that identifies in a masculine manner, then it denotes what makes you attractive to people. If you are an individual that's more feminine and attracted to masculinity, then it denotes what you find attractive in the masculine. Then there's the ascendant. Your ascendant can be other characters' first impression of your character, or it could inform, it could be, like, this is hard to explain. The ascendant is how you present to the world as a child before societal influence forms you. So that could be pretty useful, for example, when writing teenagers going through growing pains. Like, you felt as though you're a one way, but external forces are crafting this new identity, the identity that you'll take on into adulthood, let's just say. Now on to how I determine my character's placement. Earlier I spoke on chance. I typically use astrology dice, particularly the one that denotes the signs, the individual signs. For those who don't possess an astrology dice or die, you can go ahead and use D12, just making number 1 Aries and 12 Pisces. Now the only caveat to that would be Venus signs. Something about Venus signs is they cannot move any further than 2 signs before or after your sun sign. So you have 5 possible signs that could be your Venus sign. For example, if you're a Leo sun sign, the only 5 signs that your Venus can be in is Gemini, Cancer, Libra, Virgo, Libra. So to alleviate that, I am utilizing your standard D6, and the rolling goes as follows. If I roll a 1, I'm 2 sun signs before the sun sign rolled for the character. If I roll a 2, I am 1 sign away from the sun sign rolled for the character. If I roll a 3, I am in that sun sign of that character. However, in love, it's going to be, they're going to display more toxic traits of that sign. If I roll a 4, I am 1 sign after the sun sign. If I roll a 5, I am 2 signs after the sun sign. If I roll a 6, I'm in the sun sign, but I have more healthy traits that is associated with that sign. If you don't possess an astrological or D12, you can always use tarot cards as well. You're going to utilize several of the cards from the major arcana, those being the Moon, Star, Death, the Devil, Temperance, Justice, Strength, the Chariot, the Lovers, the Hermit, Emperor, the Hierophant. If you don't have a set of tarot cards or an astrology dice, you can always utilize whatever's in the house. My suggestion would be several slips of paper and something to hold them in. To see this system in action, I wrote for one of my characters, Rory Piedmont, for my work in progress, Dowry. Dowry is basically about a disillusioned digital matchmaker for the rich who falls in love with one of her clients and uses questionable means to gain his affection. For a sun, I rolled Taurus. For a moon, I rolled Libra. For Mercury, I rolled a Cancer. For Venus, I rolled Aries. For Mars, I rolled Scorpio. And her ascendant, I rolled Aquarius. I think that these particular rolls are rather fortuitous. This is a very fortunate set of roles for this character, Rory. It's actually everything I need out of her in the character. And I think it's very interesting that her sun and moon are Taurus and Libra respectively, because both Taurus and Libra share the home planet of Venus, with Taurus being the more hedonistic, materialistic side of Venus, and Libra being the more love-stricken and, hopeless romantic portion of Venus. And it's interesting that the way Rory, in terms of these roles, would set out into the world, her persona being very materialistic and hedonistic in what she wants, when really she's looking for that ultimate lover, that special individual that lights up her world. I think it's interesting seeing her Mercury and Venus together too. I think that's kind of sort of conflicting in a way, because she has a very watery way of communicating, and Cancers tend to side scuttle and beat around the bush in communicating, but to have her most attractive features being how brazen and bold she is very interesting. But at least they have the commonality of being cardinal signs. So maybe I can make that work in one way or another. With her being a Scorpio Mars, and I haven't rolled for the love interest just yet. I have a idea of him, but I probably will scrap that altogether with this method. But I really want him to be a very sensitive type, very antithetical to the typical millionaire that she is setting up, typically with her matchmaking. And that's what attracts her to him. And having her Mars in Scorpio, there's probably a lot of allure to this individual that she's attracted to. Just something tantalizing about him, something tantalizing about his sensitivity and grace. That is really going to be interesting to write. If you're interested in what I've spoken about today and you want it in a written form, you can pop over to my Wattpad. I have this in written form under my book, Characterization through Constellations, and I will be adding more to it in terms of use of court cards in the tarot, as well as other little tips and tricks. And within that book, I should be publishing my 12 short stories utilizing this particular method. So that's the end of this video. There's so much I wanted to put in here, but I didn't want to lose focus. So if you're curious on how I use the birth chart to craft character arcs, go pop over to my Instagram right quick. I have a really quick video on how I use the birth chart to make character arcs. Thank you so much for stopping by. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Comment down below and let me know if you'll be using this particular method or if you've seen similar methods to it, and point me in a direction where I can see them. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you later. Bye.